going to be arguing today is I'm going to be arguing that there's something flawed about the Jedi philosophy, and specifically, I don't think that the way in which they look at emotions is a very morally healthy way to look at emotions. And so I'll be arguing that the Sith philosophy at least has something on the Jedi philosophy in its embrace of emotions. I'm going to argue there's something good about how the Sith look at emotions compared to how the Jedi look at emotions. Now, before I get started, I just want to acknowledge I'm giving a presentation. I want to let you know what my biases are. So I'm just going to start at the very beginning by saying I'm here arguing in defense of the Sith, and I want to go back to when Empire came out. I was 5 years old, and immediately after Empire comes out, I get a poster and put it on my wall, and it's a poster of, I know what I'm doing.
There you go.
It was a poster of this man. So immediately, from the age of 5, I loved this man. I wanted him on my bedroom wall, and I just thought about, this is the person I thought I should be emulating for the rest of my life. And so I'm coming at you with a certain sense of bias. I just want to acknowledge that from the beginning. Now, I also want to say, I'm guessing that a lot of you are biased probably in a different direction. Probably you're biased because of this man. There's a picture of a Lego set with George Lucas and $4 billion. I consider this man to be a Jedi propagandist, right? And, history is won by winners, and the Jedi won, and so we get the history from someone who's clearly on their side. And so when I say I'm defending the Sith, I'm not trying to defend the killing of children. I'm not trying to defend blowing up planets. I'm not trying to say that's fake news. I'm just saying that news comes from a biased perspective. So I just want to put that into light. Now, I'm not taking everything George Lucas tells me for granted. George Lucas has an agenda. And I'm not necessarily agreeing with the George Lucas agenda. So I'm just putting that out there as before we start, both my bias and also I hope you can recognize George Lucas's bias. So here's what I'm going to cover today. So first I'm going to cover, I'm going to give a general sense of Jedi failures. It's not the main thing I'm going to concentrate on, but I just want to point out that even on George Lucas's account, the Jedi have done some very bad things that we need to make note of. But my main concentration is on what I'm calling the Jedi philosophy and the problems I see with the Jedi philosophy. Then I'll go into why I think that the Sith philosophy, at least in certain respects, is a better philosophy. And then finally, there you go. Finally, bringing balance back to the Force. So let's get started. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to read all the stuff that's on these slides, but just kind of pointing out a distinction here between the Star Trek gun that has a stun section and the lightsaber, which has a stun setting, which just goes by, you cut off their hand and it stuns them real well. Right? The Jedi, we consider them the good guys, and like I said, that's from George Lucas's perspective, but in considering them the good guys, they're not like your standard good guys, right? They're not above killing and maiming people when it suits them. So, let's start off with the problem that comes from the film Clerks. How many of you are familiar with the film Clerks? Okay, good. So for those of you who aren't, this is a film about clerks. And they work in a video store. Oh, you guys might not be familiar with video stores. These are places you would go to get these things that has the films. And they are like blocks. It was really weird. So, in the movie Clerks, someone starts to worry about the fact that when the second Death Star gets destroyed, the second Death Star is still under construction, which means that there's construction workers on the second Death Star, which means when the Jedi destroy, the Jedi and the Rebels, when they destroy the second Death Star, they're not just killing the Sith and the Stormtroopers, they're killing construction workers. right? And there's an answer to this in the movie Clerks. Someone comes around and says, I'm a construction worker, and hey, they knew the job they were taking, so maybe this is their own fault. But at the same time, I think this is at least something we should worry about, and I don't think the rebels worried about it nearly enough. Then there's the fact that the Jedi are the side that does mind control, right? And they do mind control over weak-minded people. That's like mean, right? Why are they picking on weak-minded people and taking over their minds? That's not a nice thing to do. It doesn't seem like a sort of thing that a good guy would sort of do. But just in general, the Jedi and the Sith, the Jedi and the Sith have this very serious issue with hierarchy, right? They're constantly having to call each other master. There's always a sense of who's higher and lower in the hierarchy, and it doesn't just stay within the Jedi, but as, and I'll come back to this in a second, but as we see when they're in various situations fighting various wars, Jedi are constantly trying to take everything over. Jedi are constantly saying, we're just the guardians, but hey, everyone has to do things exactly how we say, right? And so the Jedi have this really, they really cling on to hierarchy in a way that I think should worry all of us. So, you know, as a good example of this, for those of you who are familiar with the Clone Wars cartoons, when Ahsoka Tano, who is Anakin's Padawan, when she's being framed for a crime that she did not commit, the Jedi are like really quick to believe she's guilty, even though the evidence against her, you know, it's fine evidence, but still, it's Ahsoka. She's not guilty. That was crazy that they believed it. Of course, the Clone Wars in general. For those of you who are maybe don't remember the Clone Wars that well, you have two sides. One side's the Jedi, they're the good sides. The Jedi's supposed to be the good side, the other side's the Separatists, they're supposed to be the bad side. And they're all working for the Emperor. It's all a ruse, and the Jedi have no idea. And like, that's sad, right? For people who are supposed to feel problems around them, they're actually working for the dude who's the main villain and fighting an entire war, killing all these people just for the sake of the fact that they can't tell that they're working for the wrong side. So this way in which the Jedi respect hierarchy, they feel like it's okay to have this strong hierarchy, yet they're not questioning it enough, and it leads to this horrible problem in the Clone Wars. So this is all just to say, the Jedi, even in the account given by George Lucas, the Jedi have some serious problems to answer to. And what I'm going to argue is that these problems are run deep in the Jedi philosophy. So,
really bad
so one of the things that's key to the Jedi philosophy is this idea that there should be no attachment. Right? That you want to rid yourself of attachment and just feel balanced with the Force. So here's you know, one of these motivational posters. Train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose. This sounds nice. It sounds deep. But of course, ultimately, it's a little bit childish, right? This is something that, like, after a breakup, this is something that makes sense to you. But you can't live your life like this, right? You can't live your life saying, if I fear to lose something, I should, you know, let it go. Instead, life is about finding things that you love and finding things that you want to be attached to and risking them, taking the chance that you will lose things in life. You will lose loved ones. This is gonna get sad and dark in a second, right? You will lose loved ones. You will have breakups. Life sometimes doesn't go your way, but that doesn't mean you should stop living. That doesn't mean you should stop trying. And the Jedi philosophy is kind of this philosophy, even though they try to reject fear, their entire philosophy is based on fear. Their philosophy is based on fearing that things are going to go wrong. But in fact, in life, things will go wrong. And that's okay, because that's what life is about. And so there's one Jedi in particular, who I think we should concentrate on to see the problem with the Jedi philosophy. And that Jedi is Anakin Skywalker. In case you don't know, Anakin very, very much doesn't like sand. He tells us this in the movie. It was a very moving scene when he was like, I really hate sand. And we were like, me too, Anakin, me too. So Anakin, of course, spoiler alert. I'm just going to tell you guys how it ends. Anakin turns out to be Darth Vader. So, yeah. So I'm just going to tell you that in advance. So Anakin's the story of a young Jedi who eventually turns to the dark side and ends up being bad, right? At least bad from the perspective that George Lucas is pushing. But I think it's important to ask, what does it mean that he turns to the dark side? Why are we supposed to see Anakin as a failure? Why has Anakin failed Jedi philosophy? Will tell us a lot about what Jedi philosophy embraces and what Jedi philosophy finds to be good. So, Anakin, of course, as a young man, he very much wants to be a Jedi. He's very much trying to embrace the Jedi. His only hope is to be a Jedi master and to join the Jedi Council. And so Anakin's trying very hard, right? It's his failure is not because he's not trying to be a Jedi. But one of the things that the Jedi philosophy is getting wrong is that emotions are very good for us. Emotions are, from a moral perspective, emotions are guides towards what we should do with our lives, right? I'm not going to argue that emotions always get things right, because that's clearly not true. But emotions serve as our guides, and the attempt by Jedi philosophy to push away emotions is pushing away something that we need. Something we need because life is difficult and complex, and the way in which we get through life is by using our emotions to kind of tell us, this is good, this is bad, this is something that we should go towards, this is something we should go away from. So, the one emotion I'm going to concentrate on first is love, right? And the reason why love is a good example here, because from my perspective, if I want to argue with you that emotions are morally good, love's a great example of this. Obviously, most of us are going to agree that love is morally good, unless you're a really deep Jedi sympathizer, and you've already had your soul darkened. But most of us are going to agree that love is morally good. Now, it's of course love that makes Anakin fail as a Jedi. And it's very interesting to me that Anakin's failures can be summarized by his love for 3 women. One, of course, his mom. Then, returning to his Padawan, Ahsoka. And finally, his secret wife, Padme Amidala. So, the interesting thing about this is, it's not even that his love is weird or confused. He loves these 3 different women in 3 different ways as appropriate to who they are, right? He loves his mom, and he doesn't want anything bad to happen to her. Spoiler, she gets murdered by Tusken Raiders. He loves he loves his Padawan, but he loves her in an appropriate way to have, the kind of teacher-student relationship. He doesn't love her improperly. He just wants her to excel and to become a Jedi Master, just like he wants to become a Jedi Master. And her getting kicked out of the Jedi hurts Anakin just as much as it hurts her, right? And of course, he loves his wife as he should love his wife, and it's because of his love of his wife that he wants to end death. Which, who doesn't want to end death? I think we can all be in favor of ending death. So his love is good and appropriate for each of the people that he loves. But it's of course, just to be explicit about this is the exact thing that causes him to fail as a Jedi, right? He fails as a Jedi because he gets too upset when his mother's murdered. He gets too upset when it's clear that his wife is going to die. He gets too upset at various times when Ahsoka gets in trouble. There's a great scene think it's season 1 of Clone Wars, there's a great scene where Ahsoka and another Padawan are trapped under rubble, and the two masters, Anakin and the other master's like, oh well, everyone dies, right? But Anakin's like, hell no, we're getting them out, right? And it was just this clear division of what's a good Jedi. A good Jedi is like, let the Padawan die, it's too late. Whereas a bad Jedi is, no, I love my Padawan, I'm going to save her no matter what it takes, right? And so what's good and bad is very much determined by not loving, which is strange. Because I think what's great about Anakin is that he loves. That said, Anakin's not very good at dealing with his emotions, right? Anakin, you know, like I said from the beginning, he's my hero. I love the dude, but the dude has problems, right? He gets very emotional over Sam, and that's already weird, right? And he doesn't really channel his emotions the right way. So on the one hand, I want to say Jedi philosophy is attempting to solve a problem that is itself a real problem. And that problem is emotions can steer us wrong. And Anakin gets steered wrong by his emotions. But Jedi philosophy is trying to solve that problem in a way that I don't think is really human. It's trying to solve that problem by saying, let's push the emotions out. And I think that's not the human way to do it. But of course, Anakin, let me drink some water. Sorry. And I'm drinking out of an R2D2 cup, which I feel is fine. Because he's clearly the dark side because he swears a lot and has to be bleeped out. So I want to say the Jedi are pointing to a real problem, and that problem needs to be solved. But if you try to solve that problem by getting rid of emotions, then you are not going to learn how to deal with emotions. I think in part it's because Anakin is being taught to just push his emotions aside as opposed to dealing with his emotions in a human way. That's why he doesn't learn how to be good with his emotions. And that's why, of course, he's eventually going to end up killing children. So, if you don't, so again, I'm going to say spoiler alert, but I already told you. So again, if you don't know, it's because Anakin's struggling. He's struggling with dealing with his mother's death. Although this isn't as explicit in the movies, he's struggling with having lost his Padawan. And of course, he's struggling with the fact that he's getting these visions that his wife is going to die. And he's getting seduced by the dark side with the promise of, we can tell you how to keep your wife from dying. We can tell you how to end death completely. And so Anakin being seduced by the dark side eventually gets led to a point where he's asked to just kill some children. And he's like, okay, sounds good. That's really bad, right? That's going too far. And this is where Anakin clearly has not learned how to deal with his emotions well. But of course, okay, spoiler alert. I feel bad, because like some of the people who haven't seen Star Wars in the room are like my students, and like I feel bad because I told you guys to come, and now I'm spoiling everything. But of course, for those of you who don't know, the end of the movie, Anakin is the one who saves the day. Anakin's the one who is willing to sacrifice everything and you know, have him realize that he's going to be killed by taking on the Emperor and killing the Emperor himself. But the reason he didn't do it to save the universe. He didn't do it because it was the right thing to do. He did it because his son was being attacked, right? It's still full circle for Anakin. It's not that Anakin at the last moment becomes a Jedi, right? He hasn't given up emotions. Anakin, when he saves the day, he does it because he loves his son, right? It's still about love for Anakin. Anakin turns to the dark side because of love. He also ends the Sith because of love. And so it's always for Anakin about love. In case this isn't obvious, I didn't make the memes that I'm using, and that's why if there's a spelling mistake, you can't blame me. And so, in a certain way, it's kind of nice. It's kind of nice at the end that Anakin's rewarded, even though he killed those children and committed genocide, because he still saved the day, because he's the only one of the Jedi who's truly embraced love. So let's turn to Sith philosophy. Sith philosophy, on the one hand, I've been arguing from love's perspective. And in a certain way, it's easier for me to argue, look, the Jedi have gone too far because they push away love. But the Jedi don't concentrate on pushing away love. They clearly do, right? I'm not being controversial by saying the Jedi push away love. That's why Anakin has a secret marriage to begin with. They clearly push away love. But they don't concentrate on that. That's not their big selling point. They concentrate on all the negative emotions that they push away. And so, as we turn to the Sith philosophy, I think it's important to concentrate on, can I, here defending the Sith, can I defend not the positive emotions like love? I think, like I said, I think it's easy for me to defend love. I'm a big fan of love. I try to love people all the time. But can I defend the negative emotions? The ones that the Sith are very fond of trumpeting, while the Jedi are very fond of pushing aside. I love this meme because it matches two of my favorite movies, Princess Bride and of course, Empire. So Yoda, of course, has this very famous moment where he says, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering. Which of course is represented by Sam. So, because it gets all in your clothes, gets on your toes, it's really gross. But I also want to say, going back to, now we're on the side of the negative emotions, the ones that Yoda is very much against, these are very important, right? Fear is a good thing. And when we think of, there's this common saying that when we think of courage, we too often mistake that courage is the absence of fear, when in fact courage is facing fear, right? And not only is it important to face fear because fear tells you something's bad, often it's important to run from fear. It's not a good thing to be able to say, I will walk into fear no matter what it is. Fear is there to signal you that maybe you should be running away. And sometimes you should respond to fear by running away. And so the emotions, even these negative ones, are meant to tell you there's bad things around, you should react appropriately. And even as we move to anger, another spoiler alert, if you've watched the movies and not the cartoons, he lives after getting cut in half because he was so angry that he's like, I'm going to get revenge one day. Anger will fuel me, right? Which is nice, right? If you ever cut in half and you're like, I need to survive this, maybe anger can do it for you. But even the negative emotions, like anger and hate. We had a speaker come to campus. Was it this year? I think last semester we had a speaker come to campus that was against hate. And I'm like, well, first of all, that's an easy thing to be against. Like, if you wanted me to come to campus and tell you hate's bad, that seems pretty like an easy speech to write. But at the same time, hate is something that helps us, right? It's not that we should give in to our hate. That's a bad thing, and that's the lesson Anakin's not learning. But hate directs us. When someone or something is deserving of our hate, there's a reason for that. Our hate is signaling to us there's an injustice there. There's an evil there. We need to be more motivated than we usually are. We need our emotions to spark in us a deep motivation to right a wrong. So I'm not going to make any political statements right now, but if the political atmosphere moves you to hate, then that's the political atmosphere telling you, work really hard, right? And without the hate, maybe you wouldn't work hard enough. Maybe you wouldn't fight hard enough for change if you didn't have hate. And so hate, I want to say, can be a good thing. It could be a bad thing. I'm not going to say hate's always good, but it's meant to be a good thing. I think if when used properly, we hate those who deserve to be hated, and it motivates us to do something. And not just to send thoughts and prayers, but to actually enact change. Because society often needs to be changed, and it's our hatred that can tell us, don't just take it easy. Actually get out and do something, because hatred's important.